Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody to our Wednesday afternoon Bhagavad Gita study group. This week we're on chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, the path of meditation. We begin with a small vandanam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Satpadutam Orijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devan Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitanscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha Mukam Karoti Vatshalam Pangam Langayate Girim Jat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. So as always, everybody online, please keep your cameras on and your microphone off. And we'll begin hearing the Sanskrit from Srila Govinda Maharaj, chapter 6.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shastrodhaya Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Thakur Sri Bhagavad Vata. Anasrita karma phalam katyam karma karoti ja. Sasannasi cha yogi cha na niragnir vachakriya. Jang sanyasamiti prahu dhruvam tam viddhi pandava. Namacha savinasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. Arudukho mune chogam karma karanamuchyate. Yoga rurasya tashraiva samakaranam jadai mendriyathesu na karma sanusatyate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rurasya uddhared atmanatmanam atmanam avasare Atmaiva Atmano Bandhu Atmaiva Ripuratmana Bandhuratma Atmanna Sachita Atmanavita Anatmana Atmaiva Shatruvat Jitatmana Prasantasya Paramatma Samahita Hitoshna Sukhadukkeshu Tata mana pamanayo jnano vikyaro drittatma gastho vijitendriya yukta itucchate yogi samalostasma kancana surinmittar vidasinam madhyastadesya bandhu sadhusvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir visishyate Yogi Jugita Satata Matmanam Rasithita Ekaki Jatasitatma Nirasi Aparigraha Tuto Desi Patisthatva Sthirama Sanamatmana Natu Tritam Natinicham Shilajina Pushoktaram Tatrikagragamana Kritya Jato Chitrindriya Kriya Upavishasani Junjad Yogamatma Vishuddhai Samankaya Shiru Givam Dharayan Achalam Sthira Sampreksha Nasikad Pramusham Disachana Balukayan Pradhantatma Vigatavi Brahmachari Vrati Sita Mana Sanjanmama Chittu Yukta Yashita Matpara Junjani Vangsadat Manan Jogi Vidatamanasa शांति निर्वाण परमांग मत संस्थामधिगच्छति न तस्तुचोगस्ति न चैकांत मनस्नतः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन युक्ताहार विहारस्य युक्तचित्तस्य कर्मसु युक्त स्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः यदा विनियतं चित्तम् आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठति निष्क्रियः सर्वकामेभ्यो युक्तैस्तुच्यते तदा यथा दीपो निवातस्थो निङ्गते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो जपचित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः यत्रूपरमते चित्तं निरुद्धं योगसेवया यत्र चैवात्मनात्मानं पश्यन्नात्मनि तुष्यति सुखमत्यन्तिकं यत् बुद्धिग्राह्यम् अतीन्द्रियम् वेत्ति यत्र न चैवायं स्थितः चलति तत्ततः यं लब्ध्वा चापरं लाभं मन्यते नाधिकं ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचल्यते तं विद्याद् दुःखसंयोगः वियोगं योगसंज्ञितम् सा निश्चयेन युक्ततो योगो निर्भिन्नचेतसा संकल्पप्रवान् कामान् त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् अशेषतः मनश्चैवेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्ततः शनैः शनैरुपरमेति बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीत्वया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चिदपि चिन्तयेत् यतो यतो निश्चलति मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरम् ततस्ततो नियम्येतदात्मन्येव वशगनैः प्रशान्तमनसं ध्येनं योगिनं सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तरजसं ब्रह्मभूतम् अकलमसम् जुन्नैवं सदात्मानं योगी विगतकल्मषः सुखेन ब्रह्मसंस्पर्शामत्यन्तं सुखमाश्नुते सर्वभूतस्थमात्मानं सर्वभूतानि चात्मनि ईक्षते योगयुक्तात्मा सर्वत्र समदर्शनः जो मां पश्यति सर्वत्र सर्वं च मयि पश्यति तस्याहं न प्रणश्यामि स च मे न प्रणश्यति सर्वभूतस्थितं जो मां भजत्येकत्वमास्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते आत्मौपम्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति योऽर्जुन सुखं वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः अर्जुन उवाच योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तं सम्येन मधुसूदन एतच्छाहं न पश्यामि चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम् चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि बलवदृढम् तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये वायोरिव सुदुष्करम् श्रीभगवानुवाच असंशयं महाबाहो मनो दुर्निग्रहं चलम् अध्यासेन तु कौन्तेय वैराग्येन स गृह्यते असंयतात्मना योगो दुष्प्रापो इति मे मतिः वश्यात्मना तु जतता शक्यो वाप्तुमुपायतः अर्जुनोवाच आजति श्रद्धयोपेतु योगात् चलति मानस अप्राप्य योग संसिद्धिं कां गतिं कृष्ण गच्छति क्वचिन्नो भयति भ्रष्ट छिन्नात्माविव नाश्यति अप्रतिष्ठो महाबाहो विमूढो ब्रह्मण पथि एतन्मे संशयं कृष्ण शत्रुमर्हसति तथा तादन्न संशयस्य चेत्ता न सुपपद्यते श्रीभगवानुवाच पाद नैवेहनामुत्र विनाशस्तस्य विद्यते न हि कल्याणकृत् कश्चित् दुर्गतिं तात गच्छति प्राप्तपुण्यकृतां लोकान् हित्वा शाश्वती समः शुचीनां श्रीमतां गेः योगभ्रष्टो ह्यायते अथवा योगिनामेव कुले भवति धीमताम् एतद्धि दुर्लभतरं लोके जन्म जतीदृशम् तत्र तन्बुद्धिसंयोगं लभते पौर्वदैहिकं यतते च ततो संसिद्धो पूर्णन्नरः पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव ह्यते क्षवशोऽपि सा जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य शब्दब्रह्माति वर्तते पर्यजनादिजतमानस्तु योगी संशुद्ध किलमिषः अनेक जन्म संसिद्धोस्ततो जाति परां गतिम् तपस्विभोधिको योगी ज्ञानी भोपी मतोऽधिका कर्मी पश्चाधिको योगी तस्माद्योगी भवार्जुन योगिनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां स्वामी युक्ततमो मतः श्रीमहाभारते शतसाहस्यां संहितायां वैयासिक्यां भीष्मपर्वणि श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ध्यानयोगो नाम षष्ठोऽध्यायः।
Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, the Path of Meditation. The Supreme Lord said, know a genuine sannyasi and yogi as one who, without expectation of the fruits of his actions, performs his duties as prescribed by the scriptures. One is not a sannyasi merely by renouncing the performance of the fire sacrifice and other prescribed duties, and one is not a yogi merely by becoming physically inactive. O Arjuna, that which is known as sannyas, complete renunciation, you should know to be yoga, since without renouncing fruitive desire, no one can be a yogi. For the yoga practitioner desirous of attaining steady yoga meditation, action is said to be the means. When he has achieved yoga meditation, renunciation of all action is said to be the means of remaining in meditation. When the yoga practitioner does not become attached to the objects of the senses and to any action in pursuit of their enjoyment, and renounces all thoughts of enjoyment, then he is said to have attained to yoga. One must elevate himself by the mind, not degrade himself by the mind. For the mind is sometimes the friend of the living being, and in another situation, that very mind is his enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, his mind is his friend. For one unable to control the mind, his mind works against him like an enemy. The yogi who has conquered the mind remains deeply absorbed in yogic trance peaceful and undisturbed by cold and heat, happiness and unhappiness, or honor and dishonor. One who is always satisfied within by both knowledge and realization, who is always fixed in his spiritual nature, who is sense-controlled, and who has the vision of equality for a clod of earth, a rock, or gold. It is said that such a person has attained yoga. Such an eminent yogi has the vision of equality towards a well-wisher, a friend, an enemy, an indifferent person, a mediator, a hateful person, a relative, a saint, and a sinner. The yogi should constantly concentrate his mind by remaining alone in a solitary place, his mind and body controlled, free from desire and acquisitions. In a clean place, not too high and not too low, the yogi should establish a firm seat of kusha grass, deerskin, and cloth. Then, sitting on that seat, subjugating all mental and sensual activity with one pointed concentration, he should practice meditation or trance in order to purify his heart. Soberly keeping his body, head, and neck straight and upright, poised, the yogi should fix his gaze at one point, as though between the eyes, without casting a glance in any direction. Tranquil, fearless, and reposed in the vow of celibacy, he should meditate on me as four-armed Vishnu, and devoting himself to me, he should thus practice yoga. In this way, constantly absorbing his mind in meditation, dhyana yoga, the yogi who has ceased hankering for material enjoyment achieves the peace of liberation from mundanity, the peace which abides in me, in my Brahma effulgence. O Arjun, yoga cannot be practiced by one who overeats, undereats, oversleeps, or undersleeps. For a person who eats, relaxes, and works in a regulated way, and who keeps regular hours in proper measure, his practice of yoga dispels all his suffering. When a yogi withdraws the mind from mundane thoughts and centers it unwaveringly in the self, then free from mundane desires, he is said to be actually situated in yoga or linked with the Absolute. It is said, as a lamp flame situated in a windless place does not waver, similarly the mind of the yogi absorbed in the self never flickers in its concentration. The mind controlled by yoga practice is tranquil, pacified by detachment from mundane association. The yogi remains satisfied in the Lord alone, directly seeing the Supersoul through his purified consciousness. In his spiritual enlightenment, he tastes transcendental eternal bliss. He never deviates from the reality. He considers that there is no greater gain in this world. He is undisturbed by even the worst suffering. Know that the attainment of such a state, in which all association with unhappiness is severed, is called yoga. Yoga must be practiced with perseverance and a heart that is never discouraged. To practice yoga, one must abandon all thoughts that give rise to desires, and using the mind, withdraw the senses from all material objects. By steadying the intelligence, one should gradually still the mind and focus it within the self alone. The wavering and unsteady mind should be brought back from whatever mundane object it pursues and be held within the self alone. The transcendental joy of self-realization comes to the yogi whose passions are quieted, who is peaceful-hearted, free from the defects of attachment, fear, and anger, and always situated in the spiritual nature. Thus absorbed in self-realization, the clean-hearted yogi easily attains the boundless ecstasy of contacting the divine. He realizes the supersoul. Such yoga is of a devotional nature. His consciousness united with the infinite. The master of yoga sees the universal spirituality. He sees the supreme soul within all beings and all beings within the supreme. For one who sees me in everything and everything in me, I am never lost to him and he is never lost to me. The yogi who takes shelter of me and adores me in my non-different form as the supersoul, situated within the heart of every living being, abides in me in all circumstances. I consider the best of all yogis to be the one who knows the happiness and unhappiness of all beings as his own. Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, because of the fickle nature of the mind, I cannot conceive how one can maintain the equilibrium in yoga that you have described. O Krishna, the mind is fickle, turbulent, obstinate, and very powerful. I consider controlling it to be more difficult than controlling the wind. The Supreme Lord said, O heroic Arjuna, undoubtedly the mind is fickle and extremely difficult to control. However, O son of Kunti, it is possible by practice and detachment. I consider that yoga is difficult to attain for the person of unrestrained mind, but one who strives to restrain the mind by the appropriate practice can succeed in yoga. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of a person who, due to his faith in the scriptures, engages in yoga practice, but lacking perseverance, proper practice, and abnegation, is distracted by mundane inclinations, and fails to succeed in yoga practice? O mighty hero, O Krishna, having deviated from the yoga of attaining the absolute, shelterless and fallen from the paths of both action and meditation, is not such a person utterly lost like a scattered cloud? O Krishna, no one but you can dispel this doubt of mine. Please mercifully slash it at the root. The Supreme Lord said, O Arjuna, son of Kunti, there is no loss for the unsuccessful yoga practitioner, as he is not denied the happiness of the heavenly plane in this world, nor is he denied the chance of the fortune to see the supersoul in the transcendental realm. This is so, O dear one, because a person who performs virtuous actions never suffers an ill fate. After residing for many years in those heavenly planes that are attainable by the performers of great sacrifices, such as the Ashwamedha, the unsuccessful yoga practitioner takes birth in the home of honorable, prosperous persons given to pure and honest practices. Or he takes birth in the home or family of teachers of yoga who are dedicated to yoga practice. Such a birth is more rarely attained in this world. O son of Kunti, O son of Kuru, within one of these situations, the wisdom he had attained in his previous life is revived, and he again strives for success. Despite himself, he is carried by the yoga practice of his previous life. In his search, he surpasses the fruitive rituals of the Veda. Striving harder than before, the yogi's consciousness is cleansed of all worldly attachment, and he achieves the fruit of many lifetimes of yoga practice. He attains the supreme destination. The yogi is superior to persons engaged in severe austerities, such as the Chandrayaan vow, superior to the person of knowledge who worships Brahma, and superior to the person of action. Know this to be my conclusion. Therefore, O Arjuna, be a yogi. The best of all yogis is the devotee who has full faith in the authoritative, pure devotional scriptures and who adores me with all his heart, hearing and singing my divine glories, rendering all services unto me. This is my opinion. End of chapter 6, the path of meditation, from the conversation of Sri Krishna and Arjuna in Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, the yoga scripture of transcendental knowledge in the Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharata, the holy scripture revealed by Srila Vyasadeva in 100,000 verses.
We've got some questions, but possibly before we start reading again.
Yeah, if they're not too long.
The Supreme Lord said, O heroic Arjuna, undoubtedly the mind is fickle and extremely difficult to control. However, O son of Kunti, it is possible by practice and detachment. How do we develop detachment?
Actually, in Krishna consciousness, detachment is the natural result of becoming attached to the Lord. So by the practice of Krishna consciousness, when we become attached to that, attached to the Lord himself, attached to the Lord's devotees, and attached to the Lord's service, then naturally detachment from the mundane follows that. So, in other words, when you develop a taste for something higher, the lower taste disappears by its own, just as a result of that. So we don't need to do anything other than to increase our attachment for Krishna consciousness, the practice of Krishna consciousness, the goal of our practice, which is the service to the Lord, and to develop our attachment in a positive way for the transcendental.
Sevarupa Didi has a question. She says, Dandava pronounced Dear Shriman, Devashis Prabhu, and dear devotees, kindly enlighten me on verse 3.28. However, O mighty armed Arjuna, one who is in knowledge of the division of the modes of material nature and action, knows that the modes are engaging with the modes, and he is detached from them. One who knows that the three modes activated by the demigods impel the engagement of the senses with their objects, knows himself to be independent of these elements. Therefore, he does not consider himself a doer. How does this impact on or tie in with karma? Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we're actually going back a few chapters now, but it's a very good question. So it's all about consciousness. Sri Dharmaraj would always say everything comes back to the principle of consciousness. So if we are conscious of the how the modes of nature interact, then we can actually begin to step back and observe the activities that are going on in the world without identifying with them. So, although we may carry out particular duties and doing various things in the world, if we can see that we're just, acting in an instrumental way, and that those things are going on in any case, we can become detached from seeing ourselves as being the cause of those things. We're just say something like a puppet. We're moving, but everything is going on by the will of the Lord and by the nature of the mundane is continuing, and we are not actually. The soul is not involved with that. The where we make the mistake is thinking that we are causing these things to happen and that we are making these things happen, that we are, like taking part in that. And there is some taking part, no doubt. But we should try to see that that's happening in any case. And so in the course of our movement in the world, we're just being utilized as an instrument in that way. So only when we hold on to those things and then we consider ourselves to be the doer of those things. But if we consider that those things are happening almost in spite of us, and that we've just been utilized in a particular way, our body, our senses are just engaging with their sense objects, then we can stand back and observe that. So then the all important thing there is to understand that we're the observer of that. We're not the doer of that. So we're in that position as a spectator in a sense. Once Srila Sridhar Maharaj said he was listening to a conversation. Two men were discussing. One said, I believe God exists. And the other one said, no, I doubt that God exists. I don't think God exists. And Guru Maharaj, he joined their conversation and he said, so you doubt that God exists, but can I ask you this? Does the doubter exist? So this is, coming back to the explanation of consciousness, everything existing within consciousness. So whether God exists, doesn't exist is a conversation that goes on within consciousness. And so if the doubter exists, the person that doubts that God exists, then you have to explain how the doubter exists, where the doubter exists, what is the doubter, who is the doubter, all of these things. So that this is all going on by within the realm of consciousness, and we are disconnected from that directly. We are not actually really involved with that, because our real self is can say in a sleeping state. The self is not actually active at this point in our, and we're mistaking the actions of the modes of material nature and the senses and their sense objects as being us, our activity. But actually our real self is almost slumbering. And then, so by standing back and observing these things, then we can say that we can watch this going on, or watch the activities of the mind, which we're discussing in this chapter, without identifying with that. So we're thinking that we are the mind. In other words, the thoughts that are going through our head and all of the things that are carrying on, we are identifying with that. So we have to practice standing back and observing these things, and then you will understand that actually you're not directly involved with that at all. And that's only happening almost in spite of you. So it's something that comes through realization. It's not just a philosophical point. It's something that comes through realization by continual practice of bhakti yoga, actually.
Can we do one more quick one?
All right. Yes.
So which way?
Yeah, maybe you go
It
closer.
says, in the final verdict, so chapter 647, describing the culmination of yoga, while hatha, karma, and jnana yoga are valid paths, Krishna states that when these paths are perfected, they lead to bhakti yoga, yukta tamaha. Krishna uses the term to describe this devotee, indicating they are the most perfectly and intimately connected with him, superior to all others. So the question is, Krishna declares the bhakta to be superior, to be the superior yogi. How can this recognition be interpreted as a humble acknowledgement of the soul's natural position as an eternal servant, rather than an act of false ego or spiritual pride?
Well, first of all, it's Krishna's declaration. So it's if anyone can say that, then it's Krishna, and he says that my devotee is the topmost yogi. But that doesn't mean that we will adopt that moniker, if you like. Yes, I'm a devotee of Krishna, so I'm situated in the topmost position of yoga. Not at all. We consider that our aspiration for that connection with Krishna is just that, an aspiration, and we may be very far away from that. Excuse me, at this particular point in our spiritual journey. But so Srila Sridhar Maharaj says that the peculiar nature of bhakti is that you can only observe that in others, you can't see it in yourself. And if you think that you see it in yourself, that you have got that, then that means you're very far away from that. So we see that the reality is that the great devotees of the Lord, they always considering themselves the most bereft and the most humble and the most away from that. So we shouldn't think that we've attained to that. And if we do, then that means actually we're very far away from that. So, and that we see in the natural heart's feeling of the actual bhakta, the real bhakta. They're always thinking of themselves in the negative. And it's not just posturing. So this question was asked of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, where very famously he says that I am lower than the worm in stool, more fallen than Jagai and Madai. And if anyone hears or says my name, all of their piety runs away from them. So then somebody asked Srila Sridhar Maharaj, does that, he says that, and we know that that's his genuine feeling, but what if you actually are that? Like, what if you actually are more lower than the worm in stool, more fallen than Jagai and Madai? And if someone says your name, all of their piety runs away from you. We know that he's not that. He's our Param Guru. He's situated in the highest level of Krishna consciousness. But if you are actually that, then what? So then Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, well, first of all, you shouldn't think that when he says that he's just posturing, that he's just, that's what's expected to be said. So he's saying that. No, that's his actual feeling. Yes, Maharaj, we understand that, but what if you actually are that? And then Guru Maharaj's reply was, oh, such feelings are coming in you. And then he said, no, Maharaj, not that, but I know who I am, and I am that. Such feelings are coming in you. So the test, if you like, of the real bhakta is in the inverse. Not that the real bhakta will say, oh, yes, I'm a devotee of Krishna, therefore I'm superior to all other different types of yogis. I'm standing on that platform. That will never be the declaration of a real devotee of Krishna. The real devotee of Krishna thinks everyone else is getting the Lord's mercy. Why is he not giving any to me? So there's no question of there being a devotee being arrogant or boastful, proud. If that is the case, then we can see that person is very far away from the ideal of bhakti. No. So, yeah, we can come back. So the chapter summary of chapter 6. One who is attached neither to action or its fruits is a sannyasi and a yogi in the real sense. Real asceticism is neither enjoying or renouncing the objects of the senses, but rather it is essentially employing them in the service of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with perfect dispassion. Yogis are of two kinds. The aspirant who aims to perform all actions for spiritual purification, and the master of yoga who is perfect in yoga practice and is always situated in transcendence and is tranquil in all respects. The aspirant achieves perfection by the practice of nishkarma karma. One can never be a yogi if he desires enjoyment as the fruit of his action. Remaining attached to worldliness, all so-called yoga practice is a sham. One must elevate himself by his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the greatest friend of those who are self-controlled, but the same mind is the greatest enemy of those who cannot master it. The yogi is always satisfied within and sees all mundane opposites with equal vision. He is moderate in all things, concentrates his consciousness on the Supreme Vishnu, and is fixed in realization of the self and the Paramatma in all beings, consequently attains eternal bliss in samadhi. By means of regulating the mind through meditation and withdrawing the senses from their objects, the yogi becomes still and free of desire, and being situated in the self, is freed from the delusion of Maya. When the knowledge of his eternal relationship with Lord Krishna fully awakens in him, he lives an eternal life of loving service to him in the ever blissful abode of Braja. Arjuna expresses doubt that due to the fickle nature of the mind, one could ever attain to such equilibrium in yoga as described by the Lord, and goes on to say that it's easier to control the wind than to control the mind. The Lord admits this is true, but says that through determined practice and appropriate detachment, Jukta Vairagya, it is possible. Even if one is unsuccessful in yoga, he will not be lost, but will be born in the family of yoga practitioners after enjoying the heavenly planes and again his practice will continue from where he left off, and he will attain perfection. The Lord says a yogi is always superior to those engaged in austerity, tapasis, or those striving for knowledge, jnanis, and those absorbed in action, karmi. And of all yogis, the bhakti yogi who is absorbed in loving devotion, his heart overflowing with love for Sri Krishna, is the best of all. And the acronym for remembering the content of this chapter, easy. At the end of chapter 5, Krishna briefly mentions the system of Ashtanga Yoga, the strict, regulated, focused regime of an ascetic yogi. In the present day, millions of people worldwide practice elements of the path, primarily as Hatha Yoga and Pranayama, which offers benefits for physical and emotional well-being. In this chapter, the path of Ashtanga Yoga is explained in its entirety. Essentially, Krishna establishes that the 8th stage path is fraught with difficulties. Therefore, in an age surcharged with temptation and distraction, the easiest and topmost path of self-realization and spiritual perfection is Bhakti Yoga. So, the word easy, enemy or friend, verses 1 to 9. During our sojourn in this temporary world, we are perpetually accompanied by the voice within. Yes, we've all experienced it. The devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, each giving their own advice to the confused person in between. The mind is that voice within, essentially a storehouse of memories and experiences that offers opinions to the individual. An uncontrolled mind will agitate, misguide, and entangle the soul within this world, forcing us to succumb to our lower nature of lust, anger, and greed. The controlled mind, on the other hand, acts as a friend on our spiritual journey, helping us to make progressive and healthy choices which bring us closer to God. When one controls and befriends the mind, one experiences tranquility, peace, and freedom from the duality of happiness and distress. A, for Ashtanga Yoga, verses 10 to 36. On the way to control the mind, one way to control the mind is through the practice of Ashtanga Yoga, which includes Dhyana Yoga, the practice of meditation. Krishna explains the ancient path as it was practiced in bygone ages. Living in seclusion, practicing celibacy, and under strict regulations of eating and sleeping, the yogi would sit in perfectly erect position, focusing his consciousness on the Supreme Soul within, despite mental and bodily distraction. The yogi would meditate in this way for many years, maintaining stillness and complete silence. Hearing about this strict discipline, Arjuna admits his amazement. This practice seems impractical and unendurable, he exclaims. To discipline the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind. Krishna reasserts that disciplining the mind is essential and that it is possible through appropriate practice and detachment. S. Success and failure. Verses 37 to 45. Hearing about the difficult Ashtanga Yoga process raises a new concern for Arjuna. What happens if one faithfully takes to this yogic practice, but later falls away without perfecting his spiritual consciousness? The unsuccessful spiritualist is seemingly left in no man's land, having failed to attain spiritual satisfaction, and simultaneously squandered his opportunities for worldly pleasure. Krishna appeases all such fears by explaining that whoever takes up a genuine spiritual practice is eternally benefited, even if they don't perfect it. If we don't complete it in one lifetime, we carry on in the next life from the same point, and the individual thus evolves towards spiritual perfection. Then why yogi? Verses 46 to 47. After summarizing the arduous process of dhyana, meditation, and Ashtanga yoga, the chapter concludes with a ray of hope. Krishna reaffirms that the perfection and goal of all yoga systems is to help the individual become fully conscious of God at all times. While all yoga systems are certainly beneficial, the easiest, most efficient, and essential path is known as bhakti yoga, or the yoga of devotion. In this age, the primary practice of bhakti yoga is mantra meditation, chanting the names of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Through this process, any person from any background can attain spiritual perfection and experience all the benefits described in this chapter and elsewhere. All right.
Jai.
Die.
Got a bunch, but there's a should ask. Do we have any question from the students here?
I don't think. Oh, yeah. You said controlling the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind.
Yeah.
So what do we do? So the mantra meditation, abstinence, not abstinence. Sorry. Yeah. What should we do? Because we can't control the wind, right?
Right.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question is, if it's more difficult to control the wind than it is to control the mind, where does that leave us? What should we do? So Krishna does answer this, saying, yes, it is difficult, but it is possible by determination and detachment, and arduous practice, no doubt. But when asked this question, it's a common question from devotees, aspiring devotees. How do I control my mind? And so once someone asked Srila Sridhar Maharaj this question, and Srila Guru Maharaj laughed, and he said, always the same question. Then he said, and this is my answer. The proper way to control the mind is by responsible service. Responsible service is the way to control the mind. So in other words, that means that you make a promise to serve the Lord under the direction of Hari Guru Vaishnava. So then when the mind comes up with another proposal, yes, that's all very well. And when I've finished my service to my Gurudev, maybe I can explore that. But until then, I've made a promise to my Gurudev, and that must take precedence. So, in other words, if we have some responsibility in the service of Lord Krishna, responsibility means we can't let the person down that we've made that promise to. We have to fulfill our promise.
I'm not good at promises.
So this is
Personally.
is the only way actually that we can do that. And it reminds me, maybe I said this before, but that there's an American poet that I like very much, Robert Frost, and in one of his poems he says this, and I think this captures it for me. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to walk before I sleep. So in other words, to me, that means, there are so many things that we can be doing in the world. the woods, if you like, the woods of the material world. They look lovely and they're deep and so on, but we made a promise. We made a promise to our Gurudev, and we've got a long way to walk before we can sleep. So this is, at least for me, this is what keeps me, as much as I could say that I'm on the path, keeps me on the path, is that all those things, they may be fine and good and well, and I don't know, but we made a promise, and we have to stick by that. We have to stick by that promise. So we see that this was quite common with, especially with Srila Govinda Maharaj when he was giving initiation. He didn't ask people, like, what are the four regulative principles, and like all that was taken as granted already. But often he would say, "It is my expectation that from today, every day you will serve Lord Krishna." At that time, this is my expectation. From today, every day you will serve Lord Krishna. And this is the way that we, especially in this present age, this is the way that we conquer the mind, that we are able to make the mind as our friend and not our enemy. Be responsible, and that's everything that we require.
Okay. There's a quick one. Krishna says we can achieve perfection by the practice of nishkama karma. Could you explain what that means?
Well, yeah, I mean, in its initial stage, it means that you do your duty, but not for the fruit is not your goal. The goal is to be dutiful. So Krishna says this is it's very fundamental principle of Bhagavad Gita, but very difficult for people to grasp. And that is, Krishna tells Arjuna, you have the right to do your duty, but the fruit of that belongs to me, not to you. So that means we have to change our perception of what we're doing in the world. So, and why we're doing that. And if we can, so nishkama karma yoga means that you do your, karma means action. So do your duty in the world, but dedicate that to the service of the Supreme Lord. Do it as a duty to Krishna. So Krishna tells Arjuna, do thou fight for the sake of fighting. You're a warrior, then your duty, your natural duty is to fight. So you don't shun that, don't reject that, do your duty, but do that duty not just actually for the sake of fighting, but for my satisfaction. So if we can try to do everything for the satisfaction of the Lord, that will give us the guidance that we need in itself. Guru Maharaj used to say that during the Second World War, then at that time India was still part of the British Empire, and he said in Dalhousie Square they had like a recruitment office for the army, and there was a poster on the wall of that, and it had the soldier's uniform, and then it would say, and the slogan underneath said, wear the uniform will tell you what you need to do, to that effect. So like that. So if we try to practice Krishna consciousness, that inspiration will come to us in what that means and in how we can do that. And by trying, so Srila Maharaj would say, virtue is its own reward. The fact that you're trying, that in itself is reward enough. So then we want to try to do everything for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna. And maybe we don't know what is right and what is wrong. This is Arjuna's dilemma, right? I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what my duty is, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. I'm confused. Then I surrender to you, Krishna. You tell me what I should do. So in a similar mood, we should try to do everything that we do in a mood of surrender to the Lord. You please give me the proper direction and inspiration to do what it is that you require of me. And although we're not meant to to pray for any like benefit for ourselves, I find it useful when we come before the Lord, or when we conceive of the Lord in our prayer, that our prayer, if our prayer is, Lord, you please make me what you want me to be. Make me as you want me to be. And that will be, because what we mustn't forget is that we're not dealing with like an impersonal process. You you do A, B, and C, and you'll get X, Y, and Z result. No, we're dealing with a person, the supreme person, and that person is the most generous, kind, and loving person that we could ever conceive of. And he has not even a minute particle of malice towards us. He's always wanting our best fortune. So if we can give ourselves over to his direction, then that will it will make our life auspicious, and the proper direction will come to us, not by some kind of imagination, but through the association of his devotees, because Krishna is the property of his devotees. Through his devotees, we can understand what is the proper direction of our life.
Amazing. Okay. Are there any questions here?
Yes, one from Shreya. It's there. Question 3.
Okay, I will read. Why does Krishna advise meditating on the four-armed form of Vishnu rather than directly on him?
Well, there are different reasons, but meditating on Krishna in his Vishnu form is, you can say, more steady than worshipping on or meditating on Krishna, because Krishna is something wayward person. He's a very naughty boy. So then our meditation on Krishna may not be appropriate as a yogic practice. So our Guru Maharaj used to say this about, he said, when I was growing up, my attraction to the Lord was to Ram Chandra, because Ram is Marjada Purushottama. He delights in following the rules and regulations of the scripture. But Krishna is Leela Purushottama. And Guru Maharaj said that was more difficult for me to conceive, that God could be a liar, a thief, and a girl hunter. That I could not. But I came to understand or appreciate Krishna first through Bhagavad Gita, and then through the teachings of Mahaprabhu, and through the sacrificing nature of Srimati Radharani. So in other words, in our initial approach to the Lord, the worship of the Vishnu form of the Lord is more manageable, if you like, more manageable in that. But you see, this is a preliminary, Astanga yoga and all of these things. There is a preliminary and also a standard way. So then, in the standard way, the Astanga yogi, they worship the Lord in his form as Paramatma or four-armed Vishnu. In that is you can say form of equilibrium, a great form of equilibrium. So this is why Krishna advises that for the yogi in that stage.
Any questions?
So in one sense, could you say Krishna and Rama, they sort of need each other? Just like Hanumanji and Ram, they need each other. Well, actually, I guess Ram doesn't really need Hanumanji. I don't know.
No, Ram is Krishna, but in a different posture. So then Ram it appeared to show an ideal human being. Everything that he did showed that this is how an ideal man should behave. This is how an ideal king should behave. This is how an ideal husband should behave. So everything that he did was to show the perfect ideal. And Krishna, different to that. You see that when Ram was in the forest, in the Dandakaranya forest, during his exile, the sages that lived there, they as a body, they came to him and they said, "We know who you are. We know you are Bhagavan, and it is our desire to join with you in a conjugal relationship. We, by our mystic ability, we can transform ourselves into girls and be with you."
Why girls?
Because he's a man, Ram is a man, and they want to be with him in that way.
Okay.
But Ram said, "No, this is not possible, because in this avatar, I have taken a vow of ekapatni, only one wife. That is my vow. And but in the future, I will come as Krishna, and you can take birth as cowherd girls in Vrindavan, and I will fulfill your desire then."
They want to be cowherd girls.
And this is the can say difference between Ram and Krishna.
Yeah.
There's
But they are one, right?
but they are one, yes, they are one. But showing different
Aspects.
yes.
It's great. Oh.
Any more?
Yeah. How does the realization of the super soul, Paramatma, within the heart help a person achieve inner peace and spiritual balance?
Om tad Vishnu paramam pada sada pasyanti suryo diviva chakshura tatam tad vipraso vipanaya vo jagrivangsaha samindate vishnoryat paramam padam. This is the Rig Veda mantra, which means, and if you hear from Guru Maharaj, his explanation of this verse or translation of this verse is that the lotus feet of the Lord, they are above our head like an all-seeing eye. So the Paramatma is that. He sees everything. He sees everything about you. Even what you cannot see, he knows. Even what you cannot see, he sees. Then if you move with this consciousness that he is the witness of everything, and also the what would you say? He, by his approval, everything happens. Man proposes, God disposes. So everything is happening by the sanction of the supersoul. So if you can move in this world always in this consciousness, then you must make spiritual progress in your life. And knowing that he sees everything and he knows everything, then that means he's our guardian. He's looking after us. Then when you are able to realize that, then there cannot be any fear there. There cannot be any apprehension there. So we are taught to try to understand this principle as we move in this world and as we proceed in this world. So this is the meaning of the understanding of the supersoul within. So it's not a physical thing. It doesn't mean that, if you get a good enough microscope or whatever and examine, you'll see there he is, so like the size of a thumb or something like that. But you cannot perceive in a physical way the supersoul, but you can understand by your faith that he witnesses everything, he sees everything, and he protects us. Guru Maharaj says, his lotus feet like an umbrella over us, protecting us, guarding us. And also that he sees everything. That means that you cannot do anything wrong because he's the witness to that. There's no possibility of being able to hide from him and do something that you think you're going to get away with. So this way, in that consciousness of the supersoul, then all peace, happiness, and tranquility, protection, and happiness will come to the devotee who tries to live their life with this consciousness. This Rig Veda mantra is also known as the Brahmin's mantra. Every Brahmin, before conducting any particular act of devotion or puja or sacrifice, or they will recite this mantra, this Rig Veda mantra. So this is how we can understand and benefit from our perception of the supersoul within us and within everybody. I think that's the answer to the question. I think so.
Brilliant answers. Ananda Swarupini has her hand up.
Yes.
Can she put the camera?
Ananda Swarupini, Didi, would you
Sorry.
like to?
Yes, sorry. I think oh, it's dark. I'm sorry. Dana, thank you, Sripad, and devotees, everybody. What is my question? I am thinking, with this about responsible seva, try to ask this properly. Obviously, one of the big chapters and topics was about karma yoga. If it's our duty, or I don't know, we obviously, most of us have a job and everything, and those duties, worldly duties, to go on and maintain, right? In order to continue spiritual life, just basic maintenance. I mean, could that be seen as is it also part of responsible seva, so to speak, to perform our worldly duties properly so that we can do more temple seva? Is only temple seva or service directly from a Vaishnava? I'm probably answering my own question. Is only that considered seva? And is everything else kind of essentially a waste of time, or can it also be dovetailed as savor? Because I don't know, we need to maintain. I'm not, finding that balance all the time with job
Nothing,
and temple. That kind of
nothing is a waste of time if it's done with the right consciousness. So it's again, it just comes down to that. Everything is about consciousness, and if in our consciousness, all of our duty in the world is for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna, and then really we can try to dedicate that to the Lord, whatever it is that we have to do to to get by in the world, so to say. As later on in the Gita, Krishna himself says, "There's no duty for me anywhere. But if I stop working, everyone will follow my example. So even I have to work," Krishna said. So if we understand that and we move in that consciousness that whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm trying to do that for the satisfaction of Krishna, and then nothing is worthless. Everything has value. Srila Prabhupada used to give the example of if you have a check and you write, like 1,000,000 zeros on that check and take it to the bank, they'll give you 0 for it. Doesn't matter how many are there. So, but if you put 1 in front of that, then it becomes infinitely valuable, and that 1 is Lord Krishna. Mm-hmm. So if we always try to make Lord Krishna in the front of everything that we do, then everything, even what may be considered to be mundane, even that has infinite value if it's connected with Lord Krishna. And really, there's nothing in the world that isn't connected with Krishna. Only we have to adjust our consciousness to understand how that is so. Then everything will have its value, and everything will be worthwhile. Of course, at the same time, we have to be practical people, and we shouldn't, therefore, make our living by sinful activity. We should try to do good in the world and be, not compromise our own inner principles on how we make our living. It's not that just doesn't matter what you do, it's all money. No, it's not that. You have to do everything with consciousness. So, and there's the answer again, consciousness. So everything comes down to consciousness. And so sometimes Srila Prabhupada would say, before we talk about Krishna consciousness, we should talk about consciousness. First become conscious, then you can become Krishna conscious. So that means that whatever you do, there should be, it's very popular today. They call it mindfulness, right? Practice mindfulness. So you can, just another way of saying, practice being conscious. Do everything with the proper consciousness and aim everything in the right direction. Then everything will have its appropriate value. And if we get service to Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava, we see that as a great blessing from the Lord. It is not like our right or anything. It is a grant of grace. If you are able to get service to Krishna, if you are able to get service to the Vaishnava, that is a grant of grace, and we should also take that as such. Not that we think if we're doing some service, we're helping the temple or benefiting the temple or benefiting Krishna, but rather it's the other way around. We're benefited by getting the opportunity to serve Lord Krishna and his devotees.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
I've got more of this.
Oh, maybe one last one.
One.
Yeah.
Well, also had a little bit of a request.
Okay.
Just see.
They want me to sing a song.
No. If it could be possible, to go through some of the homework questions at the end of the class when it's being read, to help review during the class and to help focus the reading during the class.
Well, the only problem I have with that is that may make our class go on for another hour.
Or one.
And then what would that be? And the answer to the question are there already in the chapter or in the summary, and they're more for the students. There you can say like reflection for them to, because they're not always black and white answers, but they're meant to stimulate your own understanding of the chapter. So if we had more time, then I'd be happy to do that. I think in some cases there's quite a few questions. Like in this chapter, there's 8 questions, and then the answers are maybe short, maybe long, but they may be. I can say that, like in the next week, if someone had a difficulty with any of the questions, we can discuss that. But I think they're kind of mostly self-evident, the answers to those questions. So personally, I'd rather answer the questions that are arising like this is more better for me, at least.
Short. In the context of verse 6:19, though I don't have it in front of me,
Okay.
what specific qualities of a yogi's consciousness are represented by a lamp in a place without wind?
This means there's the steadfast determination to practice the yoga, so that someone is like a lamp or a candle. If there's no breeze there, then it will burn steadily. So it means one who's practicing their yoga practice, they've withdrawn their senses from their sense objects, and they're not disturbed by you can say, wind or breezes of disturbance that comes in the world. So it means like you've isolated yourself from that, or like insulated yourself from that, so that your practice will be more beneficial to you. So this is like, given that as an example, I think it stands for its own self. It's not difficult to understand. So that's when you're absorbed in the self, then your concentration on the self isn't flickering. You don't get, the disturbance of the world entering in on that. Just like we're not practitioners of Ashtanga yoga, but Krishna is explaining that. But we can say, in our own experience, those who chant japa every day on their japa mala, they find that they're always being bombarded with all kinds of thoughts from other than the thought of the holy name, all kinds of thought coming in there. But that also, our concentration on the holy name should try to be like that, without, flickering. That should be the goal of that. So, not, okay, now I'm going to chant my japa and think about stuff. Shouldn't be that, it should be wherever the mind is going to, bring it back to the chanting of the holy name. So similarly, in the practice of yoga, all of these things, they're always intruding on our consciousness, but one who's fixed in their yogic practice, they don't allow that to enter in there. So we can say in our own practice, we should try not to allow any other thoughts to enter in there. And it is possible to develop that. Srila Govinda Maharaj told me himself that Guru Maharaj taught me how to always bring my mind back to the chanting of the holy name. So it is it's a practice. So that's, that was the question, right? What does it mean? Yes?
Yeah.
No, that's what it means. Like 2 or 3 minutes left. Any quick question?
No. Think quite good.
Yeah?
Jai.
All right. Jai Om Vishnupad, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad, Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna Arjuna Ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Jai Sripad Devashis Prabhu ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Hari Bol.